properly equipped and certified to fly in that airspace. The sky over the United States is divided into various airspace categories. The two main categories are controlled and uncontrolled. Special use airspace and other airspace areas are additional categories. First, let's take a look at controlled and uncontrolled airspace. In controlled airspace, all aircraft operators are subject to certain pilot qualifications, equipment requirements, and operating rules which are specified in the regulations. In addition, you may be required to be in contact with Air Traffic Control, or ATC, while flying in controlled airspace. ATC may provide you with services such as traffic advisories, sequencing of aircraft, and radar separation. Radar services are improved by use of a transponder, which is an electronic device aboard the airplane that enhances your aircraft's identity on an ATC radar screen. If your aircraft is equipped with a transponder, regulations require you to use it whenever you fly in controlled airspace. You are also required to have a transponder with Mode C altitude encoding capability anytime you are flying at or above 10,000 feet mean sea level. This, however, excludes the airspace at and below 2,500 feet above ground level. The use of this equipment will be discussed in a later program. Controlled and uncontrolled airspace is classified using alphabetical designations based on the standards set forth by the International Civil Aviation Organization, commonly referred to as ICAO. Controlled airspace consists of those areas designated as Class A, B, C, D, and E airspace. Uncontrolled airspace is designated as Class G. Currently, there isn't any airspace in the U.S. meeting the ICAO definition for Class F. The classification of airspace is relative to the complexity of the operational requirements placed on the pilot and aircraft. With this in mind, let's take a look at Class A airspace. Class A airspace extends from 18,000 feet MSL up to and including 60,000 feet MSL. To fly in Class A airspace, you must hold an instrument rating, operate under an IFR flight plan, and be controlled directly by ATC. Now let's discuss the classes of airspace that you'll become familiar with while flying under visual flight rules. VFR sectional charts can be used to identify the various classes of airspace you will be flying in. The specific dimensions of most of the airspace classes are depicted on these charts. Class B airspace surrounds our nation's busiest airports. In Class B airspace, radar services are provided by ATC to separate all arriving and departing traffic. Although the shape of Class B airspace may vary to meet the specific needs of each location, the general design is a series of expanding layers. This shape allows arriving and departing airplanes to remain in controlled airspace as they travel between the airport and en route portion of the flight. To operate within Class B airspace, there are specific requirements that must be met. Prior to entering the airspace, you must get an authorization or clearance from ATC. This means your aircraft must be equipped with a two-way radio so you can communicate with ATC. In addition, your aircraft must have a transponder with Mode C altitude encoding capability. The transponder requirement extends out to 30 nautical miles from the primary airport and covers the airspace from the surface up to 10,000 feet MSL. To operate within Class B airspace, you must hold at least a private pilot certificate. There is, however, one exception to this regulation. Student pilots may operate within Class B airspace if they first comply with the training requirements listed in the regulations and have the appropriate instructor endorsement. Keep in mind that some Class B primary airports are so congested that takeoffs and landings by student pilots are prohibited. These airports are listed in FAR Part 91 and in the AIF. Class C airspace exists at designated airports where the volume of traffic is not as great as in Class B airspace. But ATC does provide radar services to all aircraft. This airspace usually consists of a core area or inner circle extending out 5 nautical miles from the primary airport, and a shelf area or outer circle with a 10-mile radius. The core area begins at the surface, while the shelf area starts at 1,200 feet AGL. Both have an upper limit of 4,000 feet above the airport elevation. Prior to entering Class C airspace, you must establish two-way communications with ATC and maintain radio contact while in the airspace. Your aircraft must also be equipped with an operable transponder with Mode C capability. This requirement extends up to 10,000 feet NSL. An outer area exists out to 20 nautical miles from the primary airport in association with Class C airspace. Although two-way radio communications are not required, inbound VFR pilots are strongly encouraged to contact ATC when flying in the 20-mile outer area. ATC normally provides radar services in this area to improve safety and aircraft separation.